There are nights on the highway when the road feels like nothing more than a ribbon of light, a thin line between here and somewhere far away. And then there are nights, rare ones, when the road feels alive, as though it's watching you, as though it's thinking its own quiet thoughts. I've lived enough years behind the wheel to know the difference, but there's one truth I've learned more deeply than anything else. Some trucks choose their drivers, and some nights, the world slows down just to let that truth unfold. I didn't know that the first time it happened, not when I was young, not when the road was still new to me, not when diesel exhaust felt like freedom and every sunrise was a promise. Back then, a truck was just a machine, metal, gears, heat, something you operated. But machines, real machines, the ones built with soul deep in the steel, they know more than we give them credit for. Mine certainly did, and the story of how I came to know that begins on a warm summer evening. One of those nights where the air holds the last traces of daylight like a warm blanket, and the horizon glows soft orange long after the sun disappears. It was the end of a long haul across Tennessee, the kind of day where the heat clings to the pavement even after dusk. The sky had melted into shades of violet and rust, and the cicadas were singing so loudly it felt like they were vibrating the glass. My rig, an old but stubbornly loyal Peterbilt, rolled along as steady as a heartbeat. The hum of the engine vibrated through the floorboards, a low, comforting note that settled somewhere deep in my chest. The dashboard glowed in soft amber, gauges lit like small constellations, needles shivering just enough to tell me the machine was awake, not struggling, not tired, just aware, the way living things get at night. I cracked the window halfway and let the warmth wash over me. It smelled of wild grass, distant rain, and the faint sweetness of truck stop coffee drifting from miles behind. This was the hour I loved most, between evening and night, between motion and meaning, when the world grows quiet enough to hear things you miss during the day. And on that evening, I swear I felt something listening back. I was about 10 miles from a small rest area, one I'd stopped at a dozen times, when the road dipped into a valley lined with tall pines. That's when the dashboard lights flickered, not a harsh blink, not a warning, more like a slow inhale, a soft pulse of amber breathing in the cab. Then the engine gave one low vibration, not a rattle, not a misfire. It felt like a polite tap on the shoulder. Hey, pay attention. I eased my foot off the throttle, and the truck settled into a gentle glide. The air outside grew suddenly warmer, thicker, as if the valley trapped the heat of the entire day, just to release it at the moment I entered. I didn't know why, but I knew. In that strange, certain way you know the road is about to change, that something was waiting for me at that rest area. Not danger, not trouble, just something. When the rest area finally came into view, the first thing I noticed was the glow. The lights over the lot didn't flicker, didn't hum. They shone steady, a kind of soft, warm amber that reminded me of the color you see behind closed eyelids. Right before drifting into sleep, the whole place felt suspended, like a photograph taken mid-motion that never quite resumed. Trucks were parked in neat rows, quiet as mountains. A few drivers sat outside their cabs, leaning back, heads tipped toward the sky, as though listening for something I couldn't hear. I slowed to a crawl, rolled into a spot near the far end, and shut off the engine. The silence that followed was so complete. I could hear my own breathing, slow, deep, and for a moment, for a few long heartbeats. Time didn't feel real, not gone, not frozen, just resting. The truck gave one last creak, a soft metal sigh, like it too was settling into the warm stillness. And that was the moment, sitting in that gentle, endless, breathing silence, that I began to understand. This truck wasn't just a machine. It was with me. It was watching the road, watching the night, watching me. And it knew things, long before I ever did. I sat there in the soft stillness of the rest area, letting the warm night settle into my bones. The air felt almost heavy with calm, not the uncomfortable kind, but the kind that presses gently on your shoulders, like a warm hand saying, "Rest a moment." My truck, Old Faithful Pete, creaked quietly as the metal cooled. Each soft ping echoed in the cab, a familiar rhythm I'd heard 1,000 times before. But tonight, the sound felt different. Slower, more deliberate, almost thoughtful. I don't know how long I sat there. It could have been 5 minutes. It could have been 50. Time didn't make much sense in that place. When I finally reached for the ignition again, I was calm, rested, ready to roll. I turned the key. Nothing. Not a cough. Not a click. Not even a hint of turning over. My truck simply refused. I frowned a little, then tried again. Nothing. The silence felt almost polite, as if she wasn't broken, just saying no. The dashboard lights remained dark. The gauges didn't twitch. The low hum of pre-ignition didn't stir. I ran my fingers along the steering wheel, feeling the smooth leather, warm from the heat of the day. "Come on, girl," I murmured softly. "We've got miles to go." But she didn't answer. Not with light, not with sound, not with movement. Just stillness. A stillness that matched the rest of the world. The drivers who didn't seem surprised. I stepped out of the cab, boots touching the warm pavement. The air outside felt thick, warm as poured syrup, softened by night that didn't want to end. Across the lot, a driver in a baseball cap watched me with gentle eyes. He didn't seem curious, didn't seem amused, just nodded slowly, like he'd expected this. "Trouble?" he asked in a low, steady voice that carried farther than it should have in that still air. "Won't start," I replied. His nod didn't change. It was almost too calm, too knowing. "Maybe she's telling you something," he said. I let out a small laugh. "Yeah? Like what?" But the man only shrugged. The same slow motion everyone here seemed to move with. Machines no more in folks give him credit for. He lifted his mug, steam curling up into the amber glow, and took a long sip. Give her time. A strange moment of intuition. I walked around the truck, checking cables, lines, the battery connection. Everything looked fine. More than fine. It looked untouched, as if the truck had been placed gently here, by a hand outside of time. The air smelled of warm rubber, old diesel, and the faint sweetness of spilled soda somewhere nearby. Crickets chirped lazily in the bushes beyond the lampposts. Then something, not a sound, not a voice, something like a thought, passed through me. "Don't leave yet." It didn't come from fear, didn't spike my nerves. It wrapped around me warm and quiet, like a blanket tucked under my chin. So I listened. I climbed onto the step and sat with my back against the door, legs dangling. The night air moved gently, just enough to brush my cheek. Somewhere in the distance, a refrigerator unit clicked on. The first mechanical sound I'd heard in over an hour. A soft reminder that the world was still turning, even if slowly. Minutes drifted. Time drifted. The whole lot felt suspended, like everyone was waiting for something small, but important, to pass by unseen. And then it happened. Headlights on the far side of the lot. A pair of headlights appeared at the far entrance. Not approaching, just appearing. Bright, sharp, too sudden. They didn't move forward, didn't roll in, just hovered at the mouth of the driveway, like the driver behind them was uncertain, or hesitant, or watching. I squinted into the dark, trying to make out the shape behind the beams. A pickup truck, maybe, or a smaller rig, hard to tell in the haze. The man with the baseball cap had looked up too. He didn't wave, didn't greet the newcomer, just watched, still as a post. The headlights blinked once, a slow, deliberate blink, and then backed away, not turned around, not driven off, just backed into the night, until they disappeared completely, as if swallowed by the darkness at the road's edge. I felt my heart beat once, a steady, calm beat, the kind that comes with recognition, not fear. The older driver nodded toward my truck. Try her now. The truck returns to life. I climbed back into the cab, fingers warm against the cool metal of the key. The moment I touched the ignition, something pulsed through the dashboard, a gentle glow, like a quiet breath waking up. I turned the key. This time the truck answered immediately, a low, confident rumble, rolling through the frame, like she'd just been waiting for the right moment. The gauges rose slowly. Surely, one by one, the air system hissed awake. The engine settled into a calm idle, steady as a heartbeat. I rested my palm on the wheel. "Good girl," I whispered, and for just a second, maybe less, the steering wheel gave the faintest vibration, like a hand squeezing back. Not mechanical, not random, reassuring. Outside, the older driver tipped his mug toward me without smiling, a silent acknowledgement. He knew. He had seen nights like this before. The stillness deepened for one last moment, like the world holding its breath. And then the clock on my dashboard sprang to life. 12:18, for the first time since I'd arrived. Time moved, a single minute forward, but enough. The night resumed, but gently, like it had waited long enough. The night after the rest stop lingered in my mind for days, like the faint hum of a song you can't unhear. Every time I settled into the driver's seat, I found myself glancing at the steering wheel, wondering whether the vibration I'd felt was real, or imagined, or some quiet language between man and machine. Out here, on these long miles, reality often takes its time revealing itself. And sometimes the road shows you things, in its own quiet order. This is how I learned, slowly and gently, that my truck had a way of choosing moments, long before I understood why. It happened a month after the night she refused to start. A warm evening, the sky heavy with blue dusk that softened the edges of every mile marker. I'd been on the road since morning, and though I wasn't tired, my thoughts had started drifting the way they do. After too many hours of asphalt and sky, the road was straight. So straight it felt endless, like driving down a ruler laid across the earth. Nothing tricky, nothing dangerous. Just empty land on both sides and a horizon painted in soft watercolor shades. And that's when it happened. A gentle thrum through the wheel. Not a shake, not a rattle. A rhythm, steady, slow, almost like tapping fingers against my palm. I frowned, straightened up, both hands on the wheel. "Easy, girl," I murmured. "You all right?" She hummed in response. Just one soft pulse, like the faintest heartbeat under metal. Then I saw it, a dark shape lying across the road ahead, right at the edge of my headlights. A shredded tire, big, heavy, fresh, too close for comfort. If I'd still been half lost in thought, I might have drifted right into it. Could have blown a tire, maybe worse. But my truck had warned me. 10 seconds early. 10 seconds was all it took. I eased around the debris, heart steady but aware. When the road cleared, I exhaled slowly and rested my hand on the wheel again. "Thank you," I whispered without thinking. And the wheel, warm from hours of sun, seemed to pulse once, in quiet acknowledgement. Weeks later, I was running through Oklahoma, a wind-heavy evening with dust curling through the air, like smoke from a giant unseen fire. The GPS wanted me to take a narrow county road. As a shortcut, I knew the path, used it before, a little rough, but nothing alarming. As I signaled to turn, the steering wheel stiffened, not locked, not jammed, just resistant, like when someone gently places a hand on your arm to stop you from stepping into the street. I pushed harder. The resistance grew. "Come on," I muttered. "It's just a shortcut." The truck disagreed. A firm vibration moved through the wheel, as if saying, "Not this time." So I sighed, gave the wheel a gentle pat, and stayed on the main highway. 10 minutes later, I saw flashing lights in the distance, blue and red bouncing against the signposts. As I approached the turn where I would have gone, 2 police cruisers blocked the road. A large section was collapsed, washed out by a sudden underground pipe burst. A car was stuck in the ditch, half submerged. Firefighters were pulling someone out. I slowed almost to a stop, hand on the wheel, breath caught in my throat. If I'd taken that turn, if I'd pushed past that resistance, I would have hit that collapse, driving 50 miles an hour. In the dark, my truck had known, long before any posted warnings, before any emergency lights, before I could have possibly seen the danger. She had known. I rubbed the wheel, a slow, grateful gesture. "All right," I whispered. "I'll listen next time." And for a moment, the engine lowered to the softest purr, a satisfied exhale. There was a night, late autumn, a few years into this strange partnership, when exhaustion crept in quietly, not the dangerous kind, not sudden sleepiness, just the weight of too many miles, and not enough quiet, the kind of tiredness that doesn't hit your eyes, but settles behind them. I was crossing New Mexico, the sky clear and wide, stars stretched across the night like silver dust. The hum of the road was hypnotic, steady enough to make thoughts blur together. And then, lightly, so lightly I almost missed it, the steering wheel tapped my hand. Just once. A tiny, soft nudge. I blinked, straightened instantly, heart waking before mind. The truck drifted a few inches right, toward the rumble strip, and the vibration beneath the tires brought me fully back. I hadn't closed my eyes, but my mind had wandered too far, too deep. I eased her back into the lane, hands now firm and alert, my chest loosened with relief, more than fear. "Thanks, girl," I breathed, and the dashboard lights glowed slightly brighter, for a moment, as if accepting the gratitude. Then came the night I will never forget, the most mysterious, the most unmistakably strange, and somehow the safest I had ever felt. I had planned to stop at a big, well-known truck stop off I-90. Good food, bright lights, clean showers, one of those places you trust without thinking. But as I rolled off the exit ramp, something in the air felt wrong. Not dangerous, not foreboding, just off. The truck felt it too. Her engine, normally smooth, gave a tiny hiccup, barely noticeable, just enough to make me pause. I continued toward the entrance. Then the headlights flickered once, not in a mechanical way, but almost like a warning blink. I slowed. In the lot ahead, drivers walked around looking tense, not talking, not laughing, their movements sharp, not relaxed. A fight broke out near the fuel pumps, men shouting, one pushing another. It escalated fast. Something heavy hit the ground. I froze, and then the truck let out a sound I had never heard before, a low, steady hum that vibrated through the cab, like a deep animal growl. not angry, but protective. It pulsed under my palms on the wheel, carrying an unmistakable message. Not here. So I listened. I put her in gear, rolled slowly back toward the exit. As I left the lot, the headlights steadied, the engine smoothed, and the warm hum faded into her normal calm. 3 miles down the road, I found a smaller rest area. Quiet, peaceful, only 2 trucks parked under gentle yellow lights. I pulled in. My truck settled with a warm sigh, a creak of metal that felt like approval. That night, I slept better than I had in months. After the night she steered me away from that uneasy truck stop, I began to trust her instincts more than any map, any GPS, and sometimes even more than my own. A seasoned driver will tell you that the road teaches you to listen, to your body, to the weather, to the wind. But every now and then, the road teaches you to listen to something else. Your machine. Not as steel, not as parts, not as hardware, but as a presence. And my truck? She taught me gently, steadily, and with more care than most people ever did. There was a week in late fall when I hauled a trailer I didn't entirely trust. The paperwork was vague, the company pushy, the details blurry, but freight is freight, and miles need earning. The trailer felt heavy in a strange way, not unsafe, just uneven, like the weight shifted when the road exhaled. Every now and then I'd hear a muffled thrum from the back of the rig, so soft I wasn't sure if it was real, or just road noise curling around my thoughts. One night, a long stretch through Nebraska, that hum grew clearer. A low vibration, steady, rhythmic, a pulse that rose from the trailer, through the frame, all the way to the cab floor under my boots. I placed one hand on the wheel to steady myself, and the other on the dashboard. Easy, I whispered. I hear you. The hum slowed, softened, matched my voice. The moment it quieted, I felt something else. The truck's engine adjusting its tone, not up or down, not stressed or strained, just aligning, like 2 heartbeats syncing. I pulled over, walked the length of the trailer. The night air was cold enough to sting my cheeks. The only sound was the tick of cooling metal and distant wind cutting across the empty fields. Inside the trailer, the hum went silent the moment I touched the door. Not a creature, not machinery, nothing dangerous, just quiet, almost like the truck wanted me to notice something I hadn't noticed before. The hum wasn't the trailer, it was her, my truck, trying to tell me she felt the weight unfairly loaded. So I adjusted the air suspension manually, then checked the tires, the latch, the balance. Everything aligned better. Back in the cab, I whispered, "There you go," and she answered, with one gentle vibration, light, warm, relieved. The headlights that responded to emotion. I didn't realize right away that the headlights reacted to my mood. It wasn't dramatic. No flickers, no blinks, nothing unnatural. It was more like light breathing on quiet nights, when my thoughts were peaceful. The beams stretched steady and full across the pavement, like 2 soft ribbons of gold. But when I felt lonely, or tired, or weighed down by memories I didn't talk about, the lights glowed slightly warmer, a subtle deep amber at the edges, as if trying to offer comfort. The first time I noticed it, I thought it was the weather. Fog can make lights glow differently, and dry heat can change their tone. But then came the moment that made me understand. I was thinking about my father, gone many years, but still riding the road with me in small ways. The way he shifted gears, the way he tapped the wheel when he hummed old country songs. I missed him, a lot. The moment that thought crossed my mind, the headlights warmed noticeably, The glow deepened, wrapping the asphalt in a gentle bronze halo that made the night feel safe, not empty. I rested my hand on the wheel and whispered, "You remembering him too, girl?" The cab vibrated once, in the softest acknowledgement. Not eerie, not strange, just kind. There was one night, the kind of night where the stars blur behind thin clouds, and the world feels far away. When I was driving back from a long haul in Oregon, I was tired, bone tired, the kind that sinks behind the eyes and pulls at the shoulders, like invisible hands. I knew I had to find a place to stop, but the road stretched on with no signs, no exits, no familiar lights. Where am I even going? I muttered softly. That's when the truck did something new. She slowed, not abruptly, not dangerously. She simply eased off, engine humming down gently, until I couldn't ignore it. "All right," I said. "I hear you. Where to?" I took my hands off the wheel for a second, something I never do, and in that tiny pause, the truck drifted subtly to the right. Not enough to scare me, just enough to signal. I followed the drift, letting her guide me. 2 miles later, a rest area appeared, small, quiet, hidden among tall pine trees, lit by soft white lamps. I pulled in, turned off the engine. The truck sighed with relief. Then something strange hit me. The smell of pine, the exact pattern of the lot, the mural on the old bathroom building, a faded painting of mountains. I had been here before, not recently, years ago, the night I'd first gotten the news about my father, a place where I'd cried quietly, with the truck's engine humming low beside me, as if keeping watch. She had brought me back, to the only place on earth where she knew I had processed grief, a place where the night held me, the way the road never could. I sat there, hands folded, breathing slow, eyes closed, and for the first time since then, I felt a kind of peace. That didn't hurt. My truck didn't move, didn't creak, didn't breathe. She simply stayed present, present in the way living things are, when someone they care about needs silence more than words. This one I've never fully explained. It happened just once, on a night when fog rolled across the pavement, thick as cotton, and cool enough to make the headlights look like warm lanterns floating through milk. The CB was silent. Most drivers don't talk much on fog nights. Too much focus needed. But then, through the static, a voice drifted in. Soft, calm, almost familiar. "Easy now," it said, the tone gentle as a lullaby. "Stay on the center line. You're drifting." I looked at the road. I had drifted, just slightly. I corrected, thanked the voice out loud. "Who's out there?" I asked. Silence. Then, "Just keeping you company." I smiled. Something about the voice felt warm, comforting, a little like my father's. Not exactly, but close enough that the familiarity wrapped around me like a blanket. I keyed the mic again. "What's your handle?" Long static, then softer. "You don't need my name tonight. Just drive steady." And then, nothing. No click, no cutoff, no fade out. Just silence. When I asked around later, none of the drivers in the area were on the CB that night. No one else heard a thing. I don't try to explain it. I don't need to. Sometimes the road talks back. Sometimes a memory chooses to speak, in a way you can hear. And sometimes, rarely, beautifully, your truck becomes the bridge between you and the voices you thought you'd lost. There's a moment on the road, a moment that every long-haul driver eventually meets, when you realize you're not as alone as you once believed. Not because someone is with you, not because of a call or a voice or a familiar landmark, but because something else is paying attention, On your behalf. For me, that realization arrived on a warm night in Missouri. One of those nights where the humidity hangs low, pressing a silver shimmer over the asphalt, and carrying the smell of rain that hasn't fallen yet. I'd been rolling for hours, through gentle curves and soft hills, the kind of terrain where the world feels rounder, quieter, more patient. The sky was moonless, a dark velvet dome, holding the weight of 1,000 stars. My truck hummed beneath me, steady, calm, confident in the way old machines get when they trust their driver and know the driver trusts them back. It had been a long day, but not a tiring one, more like a stretch of miles, wrapped in peace, until the road bent left, toward a small turnout I'd used many times before. I signaled, slowed, let the truck drift gently into the exit lane, and then, just as the curve tightened, the entire rig shuddered, not violently, not dangerously, but firmly, decisively, like a large hand, gripping the frame, and saying, "No, not here." The steering wheel tightened under my palms, refusing to turn further. The headlights dipped once, as if shaking their head. I straightened the wheel out of instinct, and the moment I did, the truck relaxed, the vibration eased, the hum softened, everything settled again, into its usual steady heartbeat. "All right," I whispered, my voice barely louder than breath. "What are you trying to tell me?" I slowed to a crawl and let the truck roll past the dark turnout. The place looked normal in the distance. A gravel pull-off, a single lamppost, a picnic table, a trash can tipped over by wind or time. Nothing unusual, nothing startling, but something in the air felt wrong. Heavy, muted, as if the night refused to breathe near that spot. Another mile down the highway, in the rear view, I saw movement. A vehicle, black, low, unfamiliar, rolled out of the shadows of that pull-off and crept toward the interstate. No headlights on, no sound, just a slow shadow, sliding across the pavement, where I would have been if my truck had let me turn, if she hadn't pulled me forward. A chill rippled through me, but not fear, just the realization that she had known. She had sensed something I could not, but the night was not done showing me. A soft, impossible glow. As I drove on, the dark vehicle disappeared behind a bend. The road grew quiet again. The wind brushed across the nose of the truck, like a cool hand smoothing worry from a child's forehead. And then, my headlights changed, not in brightness, not in angle, in tone. A warm golden glow radiated from them, not forward onto the asphalt, but back into the cab, as if wrapping around me. A soft bronze halo, like the light in old photographs. The wheel vibrated once, gently, gratefully. The truck hadn't just kept me moving, she'd kept me safe. She'd brought me forward, before trouble could even show its shape. Not by force, not by fear, by guidance, by presence, by that strange, subtle sense that only years of shared miles can build between driver and machine. I leaned closer to the wheel, resting my hand against the warm leather. "Thank you," I whispered. The hum beneath the floorboards shifted into a tone I had only heard a handful of times. The soft, contented resonance of a machine at peace. And in that moment, I realized something simple, beautiful, and entirely true. This wasn't a truck I drove. This was a truck that carried me, watched over me, knew me, in ways miles alone can't explain. The night stretched around us, quiet, warm, endless, not eerie, not empty, just full of something gentle and unspoken, a bond, a presence, a silent promise. Then the sky shifted, deep blue blending into the faintest hint of silver, the first breath of dawn, and the truck let out one long, low rumble that sounded for all the world like a sigh of relief. The sky changed slowly, so slowly it felt like the night was reluctant to let go. For a long while, the darkness stayed soft and thick, hugging the highway, wrapping itself around the cab, like a blanket still warm from dreaming. Then, little by little, the edges of the world began to glow. Not bright, not sudden, just a pale, silver shimmer that touched the tops of distant trees and slid gently across the hood. My truck responded first. She let out a long, low exhale through the exhaust, a deep, settling sound that always meant she was easing down from alertness, ready to rest. The vibrations through the floor softened, the engine notes smoothing into something calmer, something that felt almost relieved. I rolled down the window an inch. Cool dawn air drifted in, carrying the scent of wet grass, dust settling, and the faint sweetness of early morning. The world felt peaceful, like everything that had happened during the night was now being tucked away by the rising light. Not forgotten, not erased, just laid to rest. The quietest rest area I've ever known. 10 more miles down the interstate, a small blue sign appeared through the silver haze. Rest area, 1 mile. The letters glowed softly in the dim light, like they'd been waiting for us. I guided the rig gently toward the exit, hands resting lightly on the wheel. I didn't need to ask. I could feel the truck agreeing. This was the place to stop, to breathe, to let the night settle inside us properly. The ramp curved slowly, lined with tall pines whose needles shimmered faintly, with the first hints of morning dew. When we arrived, the lot was empty, not abandoned, not eerie, just empty in the way dawn often is. Quiet, clean, soft. The overhead lamps were still on, casting pale golden circles onto the pavement. The light caught wisps of mist drifting low, making each footstep echo longer than normal. I pulled into a space at the far end, near a row of wild sagebrush that smelled sweet in the cold morning air. The truck rolled to a stop, with the gentlest sigh I'd ever heard from her. I turned off the ignition. Silence blossomed immediately, the kind of silence that feels alive, not hollow, the kind of silence that lets you hear your own heartbeat, slow to match the rhythm of the world. A final, impossible moment. I sat there for a long, slow minute, hands resting on my thighs, breathing evenly. The cab felt warm around me, warmer than it should after the engine shut down. A soft, lingering heat that reminded me of quiet nights in childhood, falling asleep near a fireplace, the glow fading but never disappearing completely. I reached out and touched the wheel, just a gentle tap with my fingertips. "Thank you," I whispered, not expecting anything, just saying what needed saying. And maybe because the night still held a little bit of its magic, or maybe because our bond had grown deeper than I'd ever fully admitted, the wheel warmed beneath my hand. Not hot, not burning from the engine. Warm, in the way a hand is warm, in the way something living is warm. Just for a moment, just long enough for me to feel it. Then the warmth faded, softly, kindly, like someone withdrawing a reassuring grip from around your fingers. No fear, no shock, only comfort, only understanding, only the quiet promise that whatever waited on the road ahead, in morning, in miles, in life, I wouldn't face it alone. Drifting into rest, I moved into the sleeper, the small bed already welcoming, soft from nights spent exactly like this. The blankets smelled faintly of sun-warmed cotton, diesel, and something uniquely mine, the scent of 1,000 quiet mornings. After 1,000 deeper nights, I lay down slowly, feeling the mattress cradle my weight, just enough to tell my muscles they could finally let go. Outside, early birds began their faint, tentative songs, tiny threads of sound woven through the still dim sky. The truck, too, seemed to rest. No creaks, no ticking metal, just steady, warm quiet. The peaceful kind that settles deep into your chest. My breaths grew slower, longer, softer. The world outside dissolved into gentle shapes. Pale puddles of lamplight, a silver horizon, and the faint outline of tall trees, guarding the rest area like old friends. And just before sleep took me fully, I heard, not with my ears, but with whatever part of the soul listens, when the world grows still, a low, quiet hum from the front of the cab, a hum that felt like reassurance, a hum that felt like, "Rest, driver. I'm here. I'll keep watch." And somewhere between that hum and the breath that followed, I drifted down into a deeper stillness than night, wrapped in warmth, carried by the road, safe in the care of more than metal. That's where my story ends tonight. If you'd like to hear more from the road, hit subscribe and rest easy, my friend.